Fel Barrage as an ability has a long history with Havoc Demon Hunter, first being introduced way back in Legion when the class was first made. However, recently in both Dragonflight and Shadowlands, this talent has fallen on some hard times and is no longer being used in almost any scenario. This talent needs some major help, and today we're going to talk about that. Before we begin, I just want to say that a lot of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, or you see my videos all the time and you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. We just hit 800 subscribers, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the support on my videos. But yeah, if you see my videos all the time or you like the content, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Now, enjoy the video. So we are here today talking about Fel Barrage. Now, for those of you who don't know, Fel Barrage has been a talent in Demon Hunter. It's been part of our kit for a long time. It was introduced way back in Legion in the original patch that threw out Demon Hunter to the world and gave everybody, the chance to play this class. And it's gone through a few iterations since then and has, come into a different form today in both Shadowlands and Dragonflight, where it's basically the same talent than it has been in the past. So, realistically, this talent, it's not very great, but we'll get into that. So we're going to go over kind of the history of Fel Barrage first, I guess. We're going to go over what it was and then the different iterations and how we kind of got it to here. So the very first iteration coming out in Legion, basically what it was a 5-charge system on a 30-second cooldown. And then what would happen is that your abilities would give you kind of a ramping up, sorry, not a ramping up, but a chance to kind of generate a charge of this ability. And then whenever you used it, you consumed a certain number of charges to do damage. I believe it was 190% to 200% of attack power chaos damage to target nearby enemies for each charge. And then whenever you damage something with an ability, you gain the charge. And then back in the day, this worked with basically everything, auto attacks, magical abilities like I-Beam. So you'd be able to gain a lot of charges, and you'd have really high burst damage. And then the hotfix pretty early on kind of made it so that it was a very consistent gain on them. So you couldn't kind of gain a crazy amount of charges through I-Beam. And then they kind of changed that to be the charges system, and then they made it do more kind of consistent damage, so to speak. From there, they scaled up the damage a little bit whenever it came out, and then they reduced it, and then the damage jumped kind of all over the place for a long time. However, at the end of Legion, what happened is that they went in and they're like, you know what, we don't like this way that Fel Barrage is working right now. So they changed it to kind of be more in line with how things currently worked. It turned into a 1-minute cooldown. It did 9 times 300% attack power chaos damage to your target enemies over 2 seconds. And then your damaging abilities have a chance to reduce the cooldown of Fel Barrage by 5 seconds. So they kind of kept it in the same vein as the old Fel Barrage. However, what changed really is that it went from a 30-second cooldown with charges where you get a bunch of them to a 1-minute cooldown. And your abilities reduce the overall remaining duration of the cooldown. So, you use an ability and it'll go from 1 minute to 55 seconds potentially. Then comes, I believe Shadowlands when they removed it. Could have been during BFA as well, though, where we have the current talent you see before you. Fel Barrage, channeled. Unleash a torrent of Fel energy over 3 seconds, inflicting 25,000, so X basically, chaos damage to all enemies within 8 yards. And it deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets. So we'll talent into it. We'll show you guys what's up. So Fel Barrage is pretty unique right now in that it's a channeled ability that scales with haste, really. So it will always be the 3 seconds, but the more haste you have, the more ticks of it fit inside of this 3-second window. So the more haste you have, the more damage it deals. Now, I can kind of show you here. So this was a fully hasted Fel Barrage that I used. You can see it hit 3 targets 57 times. If I just rip a natty Fel Barrage right here, we'll just throw one out. That's what it looks like, by the way. We can see that it only hit 45 times. So you can see that the more haste you have, just for comparison's sake, I had 9% haste. After a full I-Beam charge, you can see that I have 44% haste. Boop. So that really changes how many ticks go into the window. And that's a really interesting way for a talent to work, right? You can see how it's even saying it's doing more damage now. So it kind of scales with how much haste you have, fitting more ticks into this window. For a long time, this was a choice against Demonic and Momentum in Shadowlands, so it was never picked, right? Like, it just, the opportunity cost for it in those scenarios was too good. It was target capped, and then got untarget capped. But realistically, the opportunity cost to take it against Demonic, take it against Momentum, was never really good, and it was never really in a place, once they changed it to the 1-minute thing, where you'd really take it, especially in Shadowlands, right? So it wasn't really used that entire expansion, and I don't really think it'll be used again in the next expansion. So realistically, this is a weird build I have. I've just been testing a bunch of random junk. But realistically, I think in an AoE scenario that you'll probably be, I've covered the video for the builds I think might happen. Check it out above if you haven't seen it yet. Realistically, I think you will. Let me just unselect some junk here. Realistically, I think you're going to end up with something sort of like this. I could see variation to it. Of course, nothing is set in stone. But I think you're going to probably want to head down and do... Ooh. I forgot what build I was running. Oh, yeah. Stuff like this or this, probably. So you really don't have the points to go down into this area here. Of course, you can drop these and go down here. But why would you take Fel Barrage, right? So look, we'll look at it. 1 minute cooldown. We'll say it's about 30,000 chaos damage to enemies within 8 yards once you're, in full meta. However, it's also against Glaive Tempest, which also scales with haste because it reduces its cooldown. 15,000 chaos damage over 3 seconds to all nearby enemies. Of course, this is a 5 target capped, and this is 8. It's a little bit different, but they're a little bit similar. So this is 15 seconds, roughly, whenever we have full haste. So we'll take it. We'll apply the changes. I'll show you guys how much haste we kind of get it down to. So, again, we'll throw it a full I-beam here. And we can see that with the full haste, it is 15 seconds. So, 15,000 chaos damage, almost 16,000 chaos damage, every 15 seconds. Versus 30,000 chaos damage every 1 minute. Now, there's 4 instances of 15 seconds in a minute, right? So if we kind of scale them up to a permanent basis, you're getting almost twice as much damage from Glaive Tempest as you are from Fel Barrage. Now, of course, Glaive Tempest costs Fury, but again, that's not that big of a deal. And it just gets spent much more often. So realistically, Fel Barrage, as it is here, is just never really going to be taken. Likewise, its damage isn't even really that crazy. Now, of course, I don't have a lot of mastery, right? So that would affect it. Mastery scales really well now. Mastery is probably going to be one of our better stats. And my haste is really low, just because of how gear is on alpha. But even with those numbers, this isn't a crazy talent. So it needs to be tuned much better. Now, the final kind of nail in the coffin that I think in terms of Fel Barrage, besides its pathing, right, you do have to invest another point in Chaos 30 to get down here, and Chaos 30 doesn't really have a lot of AoE applications, so you don't really want to be coming down here in AoE if you can help it. Like, you can, obviously, to get Glaive Tempest or Fel Barrage if you really want to, but you got to think of them as, like, 2-point talents, kind of, because you're locked behind Chaos 30, which, it's not bad, but no really AoE applications. The final thing here is that it's a 1 minute cooldown. Now, what was changed recently? I-beam. I-beam is a 40-second cooldown now, and you really want to be using Fel Barrage with the haste gain from meta and from demonic. So what this causes is a really weird desync in terms of I-beam with Fel Barrage, right? So if I'm actually doing my rotation here, and I end up, I open up on a pack, we'll say that I-beam is working as it should be, and it's giving me 6 seconds demonic instead of 24 seconds. So grab my Fury, we'll I-beam, and then we'll immediately rip a Fel Barrage, right? So we have the haste going. The damage is okay. I'm only hitting 3 targets. Did decent enough damage. Hit 51 times instead of 57. It's kind of variable within that. I don't really know why, but it is. That's another issue with it. It's not always hitting those same numbers, depending on like how far you are from a target, depending on a few other different things. But now we kind of see the issue that this is cooling down, right? I have 15 seconds left on this cooldown, but I have 35 seconds left on this cooldown. So Ivy's going to finish channeling. Ivy's going to finish its cooldown when Fel Barrage only has about 20 seconds left on it. Now that in itself is weird, because what do you do here? Do you hold I-beam for Fel Barrage? Well, you don't want to do that, because I-beam gives you a really big damaging window with Blade Dance, Death Sweep, and also if you're taking Essence Break, you want to line these two up. So where does that leave you with Fel Barrage, right? You want to use it with this big haste windows, but your haste windows don't line up with it, or they're already being committed to really larger bursts in forms of Essence Break with Death Sweep and Vengeful Retreat. Now, you could just not take Essence Break. However, I think Essence Break is just going to be very powerful right now, and it wants to be taken. The other thing is that using Cycle of Hatred to kind of bring down the cooldown of I-beam does have, better gains for it, because it brings it down to roughly a 25-second cooldown. You get 2 cycles of it, so you'll have I-beam roughly down to about 2 uses in 50 seconds, which will leave it up for about 5 to 10 seconds before Fel Barrage comes off cooldown. So it's a much better link up there. However, it still requires you to wait and hold I-Beam and hold your cooldowns just so they can sync up with Fel Barrage and you get the maximum amount of haste with it. So really those are some big problems in terms of this talent. This talent is pretty fun. A lot of people do enjoy it. It looks cool when you use it. Now, there are some other issues with it. Obviously, it's a channel. It's a 3-second channel that you cannot stop. You cannot move during it either. So if you get targeted by something, if something, if a swirly goes under you, or if there's some other forced movement effect, you're just out of luck. It's just going to interrupt you. It's just going to make it so that it doesn't go off. It doesn't happen. It's not like Fist of Fury, the other hard channel. A lot of people know where monks can move during it. We're kind of just stuck in place. We levitate a little bit, even though we're not actually levitating. So that's another issue with it. But really the big issues are just kind of where it is and how it functions with the rest of our talents, right? Its 1 minute cooldown is really awkward with a lot of our other stuff now. Because I-Beam isn't just that 30 seconds. You can't just line it up twice for every Fel Barrage. And you really need it for that haste, but we're also kind of committing that I-Beam window to stuff like Essence Break and stuff like Initiative, right? So this kind of leaves it kind of afloat, kind of having no real purpose, right? Especially with where it is, because it's just not as good as Glaive Tempest with current tuning. So really, if Fel Barrage needs to be saved, it needs to A, be moved, B, be redesigned completely. I think, honestly, like a charge system could work out, having that just big burst of damage over 1 second, instead of having kind of this long cooldown over 3 minutes, having redesigned similar to how it was in Legion. Now, that might be too powerful, who knows, but that could work. Or just kind of completely redesign it and move it around. You could just put it somewhere else. Maybe put it over here. Maybe put it here. Who knows? But realistically, where it is now, it won't be picked unless it's tuned super, super high. It just never will be picked, especially because of how poorly it interacts with a lot of our other kind of talent interactions, with I-Beam being 40 seconds and then Essence Break also being 40 seconds and you wanting to line them both up together. So really, it's just in a bad spot. It's treading water right now, barely afloat, and really needs some help to save it. We'll see what Blizzard does. Hope maybe there's a new build tonight and all this is saved. But for now, Fel Barrage really needs help. It really needs saving, and I know a lot of people want to see it in a decent enough spot. That's it for the video today. Let me know what you guys think of Fel Barrage down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out every sub. I really appreciate everybody and all the support on all my videos. It's kind of crazy that we're getting to where we are. But, yeah, so I'll have more content out this week. I'm going to start a new series going over all the different specs in the game and how they're changing coming into Dragonflight, as well as more Havoc Demon Hunter content, as always. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.